president is trying to balance a budget.
Maria, he's not trying to balance the budget. He's making up.
That's what he says in this budget.
I'm sorry. He is making up numbers that do not respect the laws of arithmetic that show a balanced budget. He is not telling you what his policies are. A budget that does not include tax policies is like a business plan that does not include capital spending.
Oh, no, he didn't. That interview tonight, 8 p.m. on FBN. That was Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, who I believe had built into some of the budgets that he would work on 4.5% growth, criticizing this president over 3% growth. But times have changed. There's a Republican in the White House. The House Budget Committee member, Congressman Tom McClintock, on the debate over this. There's a lot to quibble here with the math and the rationale and 3% growth and all of that, Congressman. But I did find it a tad rich of Larry Summers, who was famous for forecasting growth that didn't quite always materialize, to criticize growth that is substantially less than the figures that he was using. What did you make of that?
Well, just remember, Larry Summers was the director of the National Economic Council during the Obama years, when we had the slowest economic growth in the entire post-war era. He's right about one thing. The Trump budget is not an Obama budget. It is, however, very much a Reagan budget. Reagan increased defense spending after years of neglect. At the same time, he restrained the growth of non-defense spending to give the economy time and room to grow, and to enact the tax and regulatory relief that was necessary to produce economic growth and prosperity. And the result was one of the most prolonged periods of economic expansion in our country's history. This is exactly what's the Trump budget and what it's trying to do. You know,
Congressman, you and I have chatted about this. I fault Republicans, too, because there's always a resistance to put everything out there on the budget to tame its growth. Because I'm not saying cut anything, but just at least slow the growth of these runaway programs, which ironically is what this president's trying to do with Medicaid. He's not cutting it, he's slowing its growth. Having said that, though, they do have the media in their favor. They do have the perception that they're starving Granny and her grandkids at the same time. How do you counter that? How do you explain the numbers? Because even when I do and go through just the math of this, you know, they say some very mean things about me, and I'm a vulnerable person, Congressman. So I'm only saying, then, how do you reclaim the debate? And do we need to go back to the days of Ross Perot and those charts? Because that won over all sorts of people. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's exactly what we have to do. I mean, we ran a $600 billion budget deficit this year. Now, what that means is, for an average family, we just added $4,800 just this past year onto your credit card balance, and there's nothing theoretical about that number. You are required to pay back that money through your future taxes just as surely as if it appeared on your credit card statement this month. In fact, you're required to pay it back before you pay back your credit card statement. That's the direction that our country's been heading now, because for 16 years we've had presidents who have refused to address the deficit.
Sir? What do you think? I mean, one of the arguments here for 3% growth is it would be, you know, 50% more growth than we're seeing right now, and that could mean a lot more revenue, and that could explain why this could be balanced in 10 years. But what do you think of that? How doable really is that?
Well, growth is the only solution to our problem at this point, and it's entirely achievable. Even through a recession, Ronald Reagan averaged 3.5% growth throughout the 8 years of his administration. We saw 1.5% growth average under the Obama
And by the way, we
policies.
should explain, if you took those first 3 years out, because we're in the middle of and coming out of a recession, growth was averaging closer to 5%. But go ahead, your point is well taken.
It's all a question of policy. We know how to grow an economy. We did it under Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump is replicating those policies. We also know how to stifle an economy. We did that under Barack Obama. If you reduce the tax and regulatory burdens on an economy, the economy thrives. If you increase those burdens, the economy withers and stagnates. It's not that complicated.
Congressman, thank you very, very much.